This is a story of divine mercy. My brother Jim, I wanted to be an advocate for him. And also the fact that we were older and we're both vulnerable. You know, as we get older, we're closer to death. I wanted to be close with him. And so I thought if a person is unable to change for whatever reason, then you don't expect something from them that you might of someone else. And so having had this lifelong experience with him, I put that out there as something. And I thought to myself, can I be his advocate? So my niece suggested an email correspondence. At first it was contentious, but then it soon mellowed out. He could see my change in attitude. In fact, he said to me, "What came over you?" And I said, I put in the email, if a person can't change, then why try to change them? And he seemed to accept that. In any event, as luck would have it, as providence, divine providence would have it, from that point in time until October of this year, which was a 3-month time period, he informed me about his most wonderful things that he had been doing with his life. And they were truly good things for other people, especially as he described it to me. And I was so grateful to hear that. And I remember one email he said, "Jeff, I love your enthusiasm." And then in another email, I said to him, I said, "Jim, where all this is going, this is stuff that I know I'm going to want to use it. And if you have any compunction to not let me use it, then please, let's not continue talking about this matter." And he replied back, "Oh no, Jeff, this is academia, and in academia you share everything. And anybody is free to use it. That's the way that it goes, academic research." And so with that, we plunged ahead, and so my involvement became even more, wow, I can use this stuff. So that was wonderful. And but he still was not inviting me to his home, and he was not, it was just an email relationship. And then in the fall of this year, I heard that he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I still was not invited to be with him, although I very much wanted to be. And my sister Judy came in from Minneapolis just for the express purpose of seeing him. She was still on the inside with him. And while she was there, he said, "Well, how's Jeff doing? Can Jeff come down and see me?" And Judy said, "Well, tomorrow he's leaving town. He's going to be gone." And he said, "Call him up. Just call him up." So they called me, and I changed my plans. And the next morning we went down there. I could hear him talk for an hour and a half on the fact, beginning with, "I'm going to die. I know I'm going to die." And I've thought about this over the last 10 years. And at one point in his conversation, he said that he does not believe in guilt, and that guilt is a killer. But what he does believe in is making a contribution now. And so I fed that back to him, what he had told me. I said, "So you believe in making a contribution while you're able to. That's what you try to do." And he goes, "I think so." So he had a certain amount of humility there too. He could be very charming in his truthfulness. And when it was time to go, we were there for a good hour and a half, and when it was time to go, he grabbed me in his arms and he hugged me, and he didn't want to let me go, and he made me know that. And so we walked out of the room, and then his situation did become worse and worse and worse, and I was permitted to be there. I just came, and I dealt with the the prospect of his death by being caring of him, adjusting his pillow, smoothing out the sheets, dealing with his barking orders, and one day, the first day actually, when I came into the hospital, and after our initial meeting, and he was in the final stages, he had round-the-clock caregivers, 2 round-the-clock caregivers, and he usually had a ton of people in his room. He's quite an amazing person. He would have like 16 people in his room, and many of these people I didn't know. And the way that they were talking about him, you could see that he had affected their lives in a positive way, and it made me have a sense of humility of, gee, if I could just have been with him more, could have hung on like his wonderful friend George did for the whole life. He was Jim's friend his whole life through. I could have seen more of this. And in any event, 2 of the caregivers were both Catholic. I'm Roman Catholic. And somehow no one else was in the room except for us, and Jim was sleeping in the bed. We were off in a corner, and I asked them if they knew the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. Oh yes, they both knew it. So we said those prayers together. And we did the entire Chaplet of Divine Mercy. The Chaplet of Divine Mercy is prayers that St. Faustina came up with, and they are extremely efficacious, especially at the time of death. And if you can say it, you don't even have to be present by the dying person. You can say this, and it's very efficacious in Eucharistic adoration. Eucharistic adoration is where the Blessed Sacrament is. As Catholics, we believe in the divine presence of God in the Eucharist, and we consume the Eucharist, so we become like God. We'll never be God, but that was the way that he formed his church. So in any event, we as Catholics, we're all strangers to each other, the 3 of us, the 2 caregivers and myself, but we were one in this devotion. And we finished the prayers. It takes about 20 minutes to do so. And boom, they left the room. They left me alone with my brother Jim. So I pulled my chair up close to Jim, and I had sent Jim an email about 4 or 5 days earlier, and my email said, just ask for mercy from God. The abundance of this life continues on into the next life for those who trust in a merciful God. And I hadn't heard anything back from him. So here I am, alone in the room with him, and he's still sleeping. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, should I say something about this? What should I do? And I just put myself into a state of prayer, and I said, God, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, because, people can have different points of view on things, and it wasn't a fear on my part. There was no fear at all. It was just, what is going to be efficacious here? And I got no answer. And then I was like just tossed on my own, and I thought, no, I'm not going to say anything. We have an email correspondence about these big things. I'll just wait for that. But when I left the room, he did wake up, we talked, and but that wasn't the important thing. And then I left the room, and I called my wife, and I said, Marianne, I don't know if I did the right thing here. I told her about the whole thing. Because I know I'm supposed to be an instrument of God. We all are. But timing is everything, and she was ambivalent whether I should have said something or not. So I called my cousin Tom in California, who was not only a family member, but a close friend of Jim. And also he was very Catholic. And I told him what I did, and he said, no, Jeff, you did the right thing. He said, you have to understand that Jim has got to choose this for himself. It's not something that another person can tell them that they need to do this. And when he said that, I knew the truth of it. I knew that Jim had to choose this. So 2 days later, I got an email reply, and the email reply was, Jeff, if you want to have a relationship with me, it can't be with your God. It has to be with my God, Jim. So I replied back, okay. And the next day, I came to the hospital, and apparently he hadn't read his emails yet, and he goes, oh, you're here, good. So then 2 days later, we're in the room. All this time he's getting closer and closer to his final days. And it had been around his birthday. And there was a woman who was in the hospital room who was cleaning the floors, their daily job. And she looks up and she said, Jim, I hear it was your birthday yesterday. I'd like to sing you a birthday song. And the room is filled with people, 15, 16 people again. And she had no compunction to keep from. She sang Happy Birthday, Jim. And she sang it. Our family is from New Orleans. And our roots are in soul music, or that high-stepping dance from funeral music, that so New Orleans style of song. And that woman sang it, including Uncle Jim, and a beautiful Happy Birthday song. And Jim, everybody in the room said, oh, that was great. She was really good. And, you could tell everybody wanted more. And I blurted out, Amazing Grace. And so she said, okay, if you'll go along with my words for Amazing Grace, I'll sing it. And she did. She sang Amazing Grace. And this is where, to me, my prayers were answered. When she finished singing Amazing Grace, my brother Jim said, I want that song sung at my funeral. Now, Amazing Grace is a story of salvation, a story of redemption. And that he said he wanted that to be sung at his funeral. God did not use me. He used another person who had to package it in just the way, the frame of mind and everything had to be right for him to say yes to that divine mercy. And he had her sing that song 2 more times. And I had the privilege of believing that he did ask for divine mercy. Now, a person might say, how can that be with just right on your deathbed? God is a merciful God, and we can't tell, we can't judge another person. And but I know from my own life the love of God, and God was so good to me because he let me love my brother, and he let me be with my brother right to the end and be close together. That is divine mercy.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that rescued me. Oh, once was lost, but now I've been found. Oh, I thank for rescuing me. Was blind, but now